Welcome to Get Paid for Your Pad, the definitive show on Airbnb hosting, featuring the best advice on how to maximize profits from your Airbnb listing, as well as real-life experiences from Airbnb hosts all over the world. Welcome. We are your hosts, Josefa Kapadia and Jasper Rivers.
Get paid for your pad. 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 Get paid for your pad.
Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Get Paid for Your Pad. Today we have a guest who has been doing Airbnb for a very long time, since November 2011. She has 4 listings in Oxford, England, in Lithuania and Italy. So welcome to the show, Victoria.
Hi, nice to meet you all.
How are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you.
So are you in Italy, in Lithuania or in England?
Currently I'm in Oxford for a very short time, but afterwards I'm heading back to Munich, where I currently live.
So you live in Munich, but you have listings in Oxford, Lithuania and Italy?
That's correct, yes.
How do you manage that?
Well, I guess this was enabled for me to do with the wonders of technology and the great platform of Airbnb. I'm able to manage them, not being geographically there, but if you hire great people and good team, everything is possible.
Wow, that's really cool. We'll dive into that a little bit more during the show, but let's start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yes, I am a scientist, fully trained scientist, who did my final graduate degree in Oxford, hence the listing in Oxford. And somehow my graduate degree was somehow delusional for myself. So I decided to see whatever sectors I could dive into, and Airbnb was one of them.
And you started in November 2011, and I know I think that's about when I joined Airbnb, and not very many people knew about Airbnb back in the day. So I'm just curious, how did you find out about Airbnb? Were you actively looking to rent out your place, or did you randomly just hear about it?
No, it was actually the story that each year, me, my mom, and my sister do a trip together, collectively. And that year's destination was Paris. So my sister sat down, on internet and started looking, where could we stay? What would be a good location? Where do we want to go? And so it happened that she stumbled across Airbnb. And I remember at that time she was saying it wasn't on the first page of Google search. It was probably the second. But luckily for us, we found this beautiful, tiny little apartment next to Louvre. It was very typical Parisian. And we really paid a fraction of the cost, what would be, a room in a hotel in that area for 3 people. Mm-hmm. And although apartment was really nice, I felt certain things could have been done better. And so I came back home, after the trip to Oxford, and I said to my partner, let's see how our apartment would roll in these sort of circumstances. And so this is what we did. Every time we went away on weekend or traveling somewhere for a week, we always put our apartment on. Mm-hmm. And this is really where it started.
So you used it to travel in Paris? You stayed in Paris in Airbnb, and then you thought, hey, I can do this with my own house as well. Yeah. And then you started using it, you started renting out your place when you were away.
Yes.
That's how it started.
And what was very interesting to find out that my things would always get rented out. Mm-hmm. So, any weekend, even for a day or even just for 2 days, some random days during the week, when it's really not, you would think there is no market for this. Mm-hmm. It always was successful. So the next stage of this adventure, as I call it, was to convince my partner to say, let's open the calendar fully and see what we get out of this. So, forward the story short, ahead, we could rent it out almost all the time. So sooner or later, we figured out it was better to live outside the flat than in the flat ourselves. At that time, my partner worked for the company which was based outside Oxford. So what we initially did, we looked for Airbnb places in those tiny little villages where you think nobody would come. And we would go and live there while we would rent out our apartment. So we did this, I'm very grateful to my partner who really went with this very wild idea. First hurdle was to convince him to rent out our place to strangers, because he's Italian, and Italians are very proud homeowners, and they are very wary who do you let in your house, let alone sleep in your house, But he went with this, and he agreed that we could stay in other people's homes. While we rent out our apartment, and sort of starting to really gain a financial, freedom, if I could say it very modestly. And so this worked really well. We did it for a couple of months, and then I stumbled across something quite extraordinary. Somebody mentioned to me that there is an idea called house sitting. I'm from Eastern Europe, I could say. And for us, this idea is really alienating, I would say. It's very hard to comprehend. But then I soon realized that this idea is truly amazing, and it allowed us to live outside our home for free, living in quite substantial properties around Oxford, paying nothing for accommodation.
Yeah, so and for those who don't know what house sitting is, it's basically when people go on holiday, they sometimes want somebody to look after their house. It could be for to look after the pets, or just to have somebody in the house so that there's less of a chance of a break-in, etc. And then you can go on the website housesitting.com, and you can look after people's houses, right?
Yeah, and so it happened that I was in very good area. Oxford, or Oxfordshire in general, is very affluent area. So we happened to live in the houses which contain tennis courts, swimming pools, horses. This was, I'm in Britain, but at the time I was in Britain, but I'm outsider. So that was another way of learning about English culture, and sort of meeting very interesting people who did very well for themselves. Mm-hmm. And also, some houses did not contain any pets whatsoever. People just wanted assurance that, the post is picked up and somebody is present.
Right.
Because in UK there is a huge problem of squatters, and once they're in, it's very difficult legally to get them out. So people are very wary. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. So you're renting out your own place, making money, and then you're staying in like huge villas, mansions with tennis courts, etc. for free. That's
true.
That's pretty cool. You mentioned that your partner from Italy, that he wasn't so happy at first about the idea of letting strangers stay in your house, and I think that's an interesting point, because I bet there's a lot of people out there where one person thinks, oh, let's try this, and the other person doesn't want to do it because of all the bad things that supposedly could happen, Yeah. So my question is, how did you convince your partner to go ahead and try this out?
Well, I don't know. Initially, he was very against this. He's like, this is not going to happen. This is my house. But I think living with someone and sort of sharing the same motto in life is very important. And I'm personally not very materialistic at all. Like, I really don't care about things. to be quite honest, I think we as human beings have too many things in general. And as I recently moved to Munich, I just realized half of my wardrobe is really, it's not important at all to me. So I just give it all to charity. So what my philosophy behind this is such that I ask my partner, is anything in our house, in our first apartment, that we could not buy again? And it wasn't. All those things are simply replaceable. I do not possess very rare books of any sort, and I do not have very expensive jewelry.
Right.
But even those very rare books, with the help of technology and eBay, I'm pretty sure you can buy again.
Right.
So once we established that sort of mindset, that was it. That was done.
Right.
Done deal with him. And you notice and you mentioned earlier that I do have Airbnb apartments or listings in Italy, and that is actually properties of my partner's parents. So initially they were also very against this. This is like, this is not going to happen. This is our home. And these are not their main homes. These are like extra homes they have. And I said to them, it's like, look, what's going to happen? They're going to run away with the house? How could you physically do this? I mean, this mountain house is locked for almost all year. The only 2 times you open it is then it's, end of August and first day of the March or something. So as soon as I got that sorted, it was pretty easy rolling afterwards. And I really convinced all Francesco's uncles and aunties to rent their places, and they are doing this. So I'm managing them sort of on their behalf, but it's really in their names, although it's me who's doing this.
So it sounds like you're pretty good at convincing people to do things.
Well, I guess I'm just very enthusiastic about Airbnb. It changed my life, and I equally believe it could change a lot of other people's lives. And it already has.
So let's talk a little bit about how Airbnb has changed your life. What are you able to do now that you weren't able to do before Airbnb?
Well, after my graduate degree, I felt science was fun, but my last degree was not fun at all. And I started to say, my mom said, oh, you have this degree, you should really use it. Science is what you did last 10 years, you should employ this. So I started looking for the job. But then I realized that my earnings from Airbnb are good enough that I don't really need to have a job as such.
Sounds familiar.
I really relate to you, literally. And my sister is an architect, and I guess this comes, from the same genetic pool that I sort of really like houses. I like interior design. I like property in general. And this is what I started doing. So after first apartment in Oxford, we bought a second one. And that truly is what I enjoy doing. Getting people in, convincing my partner to buy it, and sort of redoing it the way I wanted and the way I thought the guests would enjoy having. So my second apartment called South Park's Views, beautiful apartment in South Park's Views are my second sort of project, which I did really with the help of Airbnb.
And do you own the houses? You have 4 listings. And
yeah.
You mentioned that the one in Italy is actually
it's a family-owned.
It's a family-owned house, and the ones you have in Oxford, you own the houses, yeah.
That's correct. They both are our own.
Awesome. So we talked a little bit before we started the interview, and I noticed you had a lot of suggestions for Airbnb. On how to improve the website, the system, or whatsoever. So you had a list of 46 points, I believe.
Yeah, I have made a snag list, as I call it, for Airbnb of things they should pick up or they should do in order to improve both host and guest experience.
Great. Well, I know that some people in the office at the Airbnb do actually listen to the podcast sometimes. So hopefully they're listening, and tell us what you think could be better.
So I'm not gonna endeavor on 46 points, and the list is still growing. But I could mention few. So, for example, I have had my flat on Airbnb for now 4 years, I believe, the very first one in Oxford. And as time progresses, you do change your space. You know, you add things, you remove certain things, you update certain furniture, you update certain details in the flats. And therefore, I believe that every 2 years, Airbnb should offer free photography again to hosts who did so well, you know, or they hit certain, I don't know, there could be some KPI in place, you know, to say you have to have certain number of guests or booking per year in order to qualify after 2 years to have a new photo shoot. So luckily for me, the very, very first time when I got a photographer in my flat, he was an exceptionally good photographer, and he works for the big brand magazines and architecture. So he's the guy behind all those glossy, photos in magazines in UK. And luckily I got a contact of him. So when I needed to redo the photography, I actually paid him personally to get him back.
Right.
And because he was so good.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got my second flat, I didn't even bother with Airbnb photography at all. I just got him.
Mm-hmm.
So there are two elements Airbnb could improve. So one, offer re-photography, so to speak, every 2 years, but also give you a choice. If you liked your previous photographer, get him again.
Right.
And maybe photographer on its side could start earning certain points because you would notice he's more popular, he's more requested. So you see, there's so much more could be done on this very sort of simple.
Yeah, I think this is a really good suggestion because, I've been doing Airbnb for almost 3 years, and just like you said, my apartment looks a little bit different now. And also, I made a very stupid mistake when I had my apartment photographed because I forgot to make up the beds. So now, it doesn't look as good as it could be. And yeah. I've been trying to get the Airbnb also to send the photographer over again, but I think I may just do what you did and just hire somebody myself. But yeah, I completely agree. It would be nice if, maybe every year, every 2 years or something, like you said, for people who go over a certain amount of bookings, hosts who just host a lot of people and have a lot of bookings. I think that's definitely a good idea. So let's do one more suggestion of your list of 46.
So the other suggestion is really the way I live, and I think a lot of people like yourself and myself will relate to this. So I lived previously in Oxford, and now I live in Munich, Germany. And so it happens that I have two phones, one with the UK SIM card and one with the German SIM card. So although I want my notifications come to my German phone, mm-hmm. I would like my English phone to be the first choice of people to call. Because, if they are in UK and, half of my guests are actually UK residents, I want them to be able to call my UK number so they don't incur any extra costs.
Okay, I see what you mean.
And because, I've made the choice that my primary contact and where my messages arrive is German, the number for them to call is German again. So there are two problems here. One, they have to deal with the international call. And second, it gives them a sense that I'm not in UK.
Right.
So there's sort of an additional maybe not in probably directly, but it's additional worries like, oh, the host is not here. Why am I calling at the German number?
Right.
So I think Airbnb should allow to choose the order or priority the numbers people call.
Yeah.
And this is another problem which I come across with is the order I entered the number. So, for example, my number, my German number, my UK number, my German number, my partner's number, and my mom's number, and then it's additional person in Oxford who helps me out with apartment. So I entered them in random order, but actually prioritized list is very different. I want my numbers to be on top, starting with UK number.
Mm-hmm.
Then I want to be my Oxford contact. Then I want to be my partner, and then I want to be my mom. My mom
is there a special reason why you put your mom at the bottom of the list? Or?
No. I believe, my mom could solve a lot of things of my flats, but I have other people in place to help me out.
Right.
My mom's like the last resort.
But I understand
and I think this is very important.
Yeah, no, I understand the problem. Like, you have most of your guests in Oxford, but you live in Germany. So yeah, you want to get the notifications on your German phone, but you don't want to bother the guests with international phone calls. So you want them to call your English number. Do you send out like a guidebook or something to your guests?
Yes, I do.
Okay,
that is addressed.
I have kind of the same problem, and what I do is like first of all I let people know that I am traveling. Because they'll probably find out anyway. But I send them in my guidebook. I send them like a few other ways that they can contact me. So I tell them, hey, you can reach me on WhatsApp, you can reach me on email, you can reach me on Skype, and so I try to establish contact with them, outside the regular sort of phone communication. So that's kind of how I get around it.
Mm-hmm. I'm very similar to you. I have all those things in place. And it's just I felt that it could be a choice for the host to have, their preferences. Because I'm happy to take roaming charges for my English phone. But I would like my guests to be able to call, let's say UK number, the local one.
Right.
Instead of paying for a German call.
Yep. All right. Good suggestions. So I hope the folks at Airbnb headquarters are listening. I just recently noticed that they made an update to the website. I don't know if you've seen it, but if you go to your messages, you can now charge guests for a paid amenity. Did you notice that?
No, I did not see this. It must be very recent addition.
I don't know if they rolled it out only in certain places, or
you mean America,
maybe just selected hosts. But yeah, I can charge people for paid amenities now. So I can just put in a price, I can put in a description and a message, and then I can just add the charge, which is a good improvement, I think, because when you want to provide some extra services to your guests, and if you're not in the city, if you're traveling like me, for example, I can I can offer my guests some services, but then how are they going to pay for it? I have to ask them to use PayPal or something, and so I think it's good that Airbnb implemented this on their website, so it makes it much easier.
Could you give an example? What exactly would that entail?
Well, for example, I am now staying at an Airbnb in Bangkok with a former podcast guest. Actually, his name is Kelly Kampen, and he's a featured host in Thailand. Apparently, he's like the best host in Thailand, and he is doing a really good job. So anyway, he has some snacks, some drinks in his room, and what he did is he put a little box where people can just put in cash. So I guess what he could do instead is he could just tell people to take whatever they want and note down how much they consume, and then he could just put the charge through Airbnb.
So as almost
Or maybe
I will not
renting
mention
bikes
a
and
site.
what's that?
Carry on.
Yeah, or maybe if you, let's say, you want to rent out a bike to somebody, or whatever sort of service or things you wanna sell to your guests, whatever you want to do, it's cool that you can just include it in the price of the reservation.
Yeah, I think that's very good idea. I will not mention the site, but I noticed that some other sites actually do have this. So, for example, if you would like to have a cot for the baby, you can add the price per day, or you could say the price per day is top amount, or you could say the price is per stay. So I could keep up those items and probably repurchase them when they are no good, or been used and they don't look as good. But also I have, for example, a buggy to people to offer, a stroller, if they want to have it. So yet again is another commodity I could supply. I also have bikes, which yet again is I give all those things for free, but I suppose even the little money towards it would help me to maintain the best quality of items, I suppose.
Yeah.
Actually, that brings me to another point, which I thought Airbnb could help us, which I have experienced this a lot, and it causes sometimes a bit of a friction, but luckily I have now the system in place which helps me out locally. So let's say somebody books my apartment to 2 people, and they don't specifically tell who they are. They are a couple, they are mother and son, daughter and father, those sort of circumstances. So people come to my place and they say, oh, we need a second bed, right? Which is fine. I say, oh, okay, extra bedding is there and there if I was not aware of this sort of certain situation before. But what it costs to me is much more than it would be for one set of bedding, because I pay per unit. So all of a sudden, although the stay was booked for 2 people, it becomes the stay as if it would be 3 people.
Right.
And I always lose out on this. And there's no system in place for Airbnb guests to declare this before they come. And I always feel terribly bad sort of to turn around and say, oh, actually you should be paying £5. So I just count this as a loss. But I think this should be somehow implemented. So I would not,
So sorry. So you're saying you incur extra costs because you need to wash the extra set of linen?
That's correct.
Okay.
Because I pay per items.
Okay, you take it to the laundry.
Sort of, yes.
Okay.
I have cleaning ladies who do it for me, but I pay them per item. So all of a sudden, one linen costs a certain amount.
Yeah.
So because it was 2 people staying and they, let's say, work colleagues, this the running cost got a bit more expensive than it would be if that would have been a couple.
Food for thought for the people at Airbnb. I wanted to change the subject before we get to the final part of the show, and because I saw you have something like 250 reviews on your Oxford listing, and you've been doing it for so long. You must have some interesting stories, maybe some funny guests, or maybe something went wrong, or whatever you think is most interesting.
I have to disappoint you on the bad guest stories, because I have none. I had about 500 guests, and although it doesn't translate directly to reviews, as I previously I never chased them up, and I never really tried to get them. So I think I had more bookings than my reviews tell.
Sure.
And in fact, I had no one who I have to report and say that was terrible experience. You have to be very, how to say this? You have to understand that people are very different, some guests would say, Victoria, your directions were amazing. We arrived, everything was perfect. We loved the flat, we loved the manual, we loved everything. And some people are still, would say, oh, directions were terrible. We couldn't get into the flat. So, you have to take in account that you're dealing with a lot of people and their understanding or knowledge of certain parts of the world are different. So, and this also counts for cleanliness. Somebody would leave the house in such a pristine condition that you would be amazed that somebody actually stayed there. And sometimes it would come in and it would be like a lot of shopping boxes, a lot of bags, and they feel that is okay. But I've never had situations where I would say, oh, this is really unacceptable. Mm-hmm. And I think I can add another point to say that I can compare, because when I was a student, I think my second year of graduate student, in the summer I worked in a hotel. And this hotel experience never compared to Airbnb experience, because what I've seen in a hotel, I've never seen in my house. So
right.
Touch the wood.
It's funny,
touch the wood.
You mentioned that, because I was just talking with my host Kelly here in Bangkok about the same thing. How when you're staying in a hotel, it doesn't feel as personal, if you make a mess in a hotel room, you feel like you're not really doing harm to anyone, right? Because it's a hotel, it's like a company, and
it's a big corporation with some fancy flag, on the front of the building, so you don't care. But at this point, I think each one of us as a host are not a corporation, we're actually real people.
Exactly. And that's the difference. Like if I stay in somebody's house, I don't want to make a mess because it makes me feel bad. And you communicate with the host in advance, and you feel kind of privileged to be able to stay in somebody's house, right?
Yeah.
So I think naturally you treat somebody's personal space and belongings nicer than you would in a hotel.
Yes, and I think our places and spaces or listings in general are very personalized. So a lot of people who stay with me, they would leave a note just like, Victoria, I loved your books. I can see your language junkie. Or I read through your thesis. Because I have my thesis in my flat. I should really remove this. But, we flipped through your thesis and we found it highly amusing and interesting to read. So I think people connect to you, even you not literally or physically present there. They love the decor, or they love the, interior solution, or they love this, that, and the other. I think it's very rewarding for the host is when somebody leaves you a card, personal card, right, or leaves you some cake, or they bake you a cake, they cook you dinner. I really like movies, which are like Finnish cartoons. I don't know if you know it, but it's very popular in my country. And I have cups and spoons and with those logos. So somebody actually took time and sit down and draw a personal card with movie for me. Right in between. Thank you so much for letting us stay in your beautiful flat. So,
that's amazing.
Yeah, and I always leave the greeting card for the guest, and I think they really respond to that. They write me back saying, Victoria, we loved your place. So I have plenty of cards and notes left for me, and people are really nice and kind, and it works really well.
Awesome. So on that positive note, we've come to the end of the show. So thank you so much, Victoria. It was a pleasure talking to you. And I'll put your listings in the show notes, which people can find at getpaidforyourpet.com/podcast. And of course, and one last thing, you did read the book, did you?
Yes, I did. Absolutely. And I found it very insightful. There are very good points in the book for, novices, hosts, I would say. But also for somebody who's been hosting for a while, there are quite a few good solutions. So I actually made some notes.
Wow, that's great to hear, because you started doing Airbnb before me. So if I managed
but I didn't write the book.
if you learned something from it, then that makes me feel pretty good.
Yeah.
Awesome. So for other people out there who are listening, if you are interested in the book, you can find it on Amazon. And if you want to take a look at the first couple chapters before you make the decision to buy it, you can get those chapters at getpaidforyourpad.com. You can fill in your email address, and we'll send you the first chapters, and you can check it out for free. So thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks, Victoria, and we'll see you next time.
As I say, keep on Airbnb.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Get paid for your pad. 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 Get paid for your pad.